If you're joining us, my name is Tony Kolanda. I'm privileged and honored, of course, to be hosting a board member at the Kenya Motorsport Federation, John Kamau. John Kamau, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Motorsport is in crisis. It is in a serious crisis from what we are getting on our sports desk here at Cape Media. In terms of course, recently we have seen the resignation of some of the chairmen from the different commissions that, of course, form the body of the Kenya Motorsport Federation. I'm a lover of motorsport. I've been in motorsport since 2008, since I started my journalism career, and I love motorsport. And where we are right now, it is bad. You've been in motorsport for all these years, I think I found you in motorsport.
Yes, you did.
In 2008, I'm sure you're already inside it already.
Yes, you did.
You've been all there. How do you feel at the current situation in motorsport? Is it in good state? Is it in bad state? What's happening?
To be honest, I'm not going to call it a crisis because there was a much bigger crisis when motorsport moved out of AA of Kenya, where it was just the rally department. And it took quite a bit of effort from the stakeholders to make that move. But over the years, the federation has transitioned to where we are now. So I don't think it's as bad as it was then, because as you probably know, AA of Kenya and Motorsport are the two entities within the FIM, AA being mobility and rallying and Motorsport being the sporting arm of the sporting side of FIA. So when Motorsport people moved out of the mobility side and set up their own infrastructure and setup, I was actually in that stakeholder committee that transitioned us from AA of Kenya to then Kenya Motorsports Foundation, which transitioned to Kenya Motorsports Limited, and later on to Kenya Motorsports Federation Limited. The structure of the federation is built, and with a lot of thought actually, around a similar structure to the FIA, where you've got clubs that are members of the FIA, just like in Kenya, you've got clubs that are members of KMSF. And what then you've got is that within the federation, as in FIA or in KMSF, there are certain bodies within that structure, each of which report up to the General Assembly, which now would be of the FIA and or the board of KMSF. Yeah. Now, the clubs in Kenya form the federation. It's a limited company, limited by guarantee. Yes. The clubs produce the members who are the competitors. The clubs then would also produce the officials and the composition of they will have representation in the rally in the respective commissions. Yes. And also form the Motorsport Council. Yes. So the way we structured it when we were setting it all up is that each of the sporting disciplines would have a commission, and the commissions would have representation from competitors, officials, and organizers. And they are responsible for listening to the organizers and also listening to the competitors, from which they'll formulate the respective regulations that are fed into the Motorsport Council. And the council then will moderate all these different regulations before the KMSF board approves this. Yeah. So where are we? Is it that bad?
People are resigning. Drivers, we are not seeing any drivers showing up for competitions. Only maybe a handful, 5, 6. Which you know clearly well. Motorsport,
I'll tell you.
80 plus. So yes. What's going on? There's a problem. There
definitely is a problem. And it's not a problem that started off this year. Yes. It's a problem that started off a couple of years ago. And as you probably are aware, KCB sponsorship ended in 2021. Because
maybe of mismanagement, or just because there was no money for them?
No, the issue has never been money. The issue, in my view, was never about mismanagement. Yes. And I can take you back because, yes. Say for example, in 2005, yes. When the sponsorship started or thereabouts, clubs were only getting 300,000 of the 1.4 million shillings that was set aside for every round. So clubs got 300,000 and collected entry fees. The rest of the money was actually spent on very many other things until yes. It started now, clubs felt it was unfair on them to start incurring costs when the numbers started falling. So the whole thing was changed to try and assist clubs to organize and ensure that they have sufficient funding to meet the demands of KCB. And what happened then is that it was changed. So KMSF collected entry fees, but each club was being given, I think, 1.2 million shillings to help them organize a quality event. And yes, we did have quality events. But by 2021, the numbers started dwindling, especially post-COVID. And I think the last two rallies of 2021 had 17 and 18 entries. The point at which KCB now are really, really concerned.
Yes.
So we moved from 25 to 30 entries to these very few numbers. Obviously, it could be other reasons around the money they were spending vis-a-vis what they were getting in return.
Yes.
And also the fact that Safari Rally was coming in and they wanted to put in quite a lot of money. And KCB has been really, really helpful. Okay.
So looking at the drivers, there's an exodus of drivers throwing in the towel, they're not showing up.
Yeah.
That's a bad indicator.
Yeah.
And recently, of course, I followed up there was a board meeting that was held on the 28th of August.
Yes, true.
And that's where the genesis of most of these things, I think that's when things started going south. What exactly, what is your role in the KMSF board, looking at what happened on the 28th of August?
Okay,
in a nutshell.
I represent Kenya Motorsports Club.
Yes.
On the board.
It's true.
My chairman, Jim Kahumbura, steps aside because of how busy was kept by WRC, so I went in as his alternate director. And I was also in the board finance committee, so pretty much involved in how badly we were doing financially and everything else.
Yes.
But coming to the 28th, what happened, to be fair, is a board meeting was called, and there had been quite a bit of resistance to getting that board meet happen.
Yes.
Board meet happened, but the directors forced it, and it happened on the 28th. And meeting was supposed to start at 11 o'clock. Article 48 of the Articles of Association says, if 5 minutes after the appointed time, the chairman is not in, the director's presence will appoint a chairman for the meeting. So at 11 o'clock, we did have a quorum because the number of directors that had actually signed in was sufficient to form a quorum. And Jim Kahumbura took over the chair at 11:05. So the meeting started. I think the first chairman walked in slightly later than that and found the meeting already in progress. But one of the things that had been agreed is that, yes, I was sitting in that meeting, but because that meeting was supposed to approve the accounts for 2023, and I have been in the board finance committee, my role was just to contribute to the extent as the auditors make their presentation. But obviously, if there was any question raised, I was able to help provide the answers. Yeah. So when there
was a coup there.
I'm not going to call it a coup.
There was a change of guard, forceful ejection of the
certain members.
Yes, was that,
yes.
There was a coup?
There wasn't a coup. And I think it's important that we are all very honest as to exactly what happened. And the truth of the matter is that, yes, at 11:05, Jim Kahumbura took over the seat, the concurrence of the rest of the directors at the meeting. And when the meeting started, the issue about affiliation came up. And the problem that some of us had was that there were clubs that were religious in paying their recognition fees, and there are others that were not. And the 4 clubs were East African Motorsports Club, which is the one that I think Mr. Maina Muturi represented, which was in arrears for 4 years. Then we had VCCCK, we had Meru, and KRT.
In arrears, I understand from the paperwork I have, from what you've said, because Maina Muturi is not here, chairman is not here to defend himself, but from the paperwork I have, looks like he has been, he had done all the due diligence for his club. I'm just mentioning that because you mentioned that he was.
So I'll tell you, the fact of the matter is, I think 2 weeks before the board meeting, I mean, earlier on in the year, about July or thereabouts, we were informed by the East African Motorsports Club that there had been a change of guard. And the secretariat sent to them recognition forms to inform the federation of the new structures. And if they were going to change their director, you are also sent a form to fill out for particulars of a director. Now, despite very many efforts, this didn't happen. So getting closer to the board meeting, an email was sent to the club with the invoice and the recognition forms.
Yes.
And what I said, and what I said, and I copied in the club, was that to the secretariat, do not credit their accounts if you do not know who their officials are.
Okay.
Right? At least we need to have our records up to date, and if they tell us who they are and they return, then credit their account. And if they say John Kamau is their director, John Kamau will sit in the meeting.
Yep.
So I got a response from their chairman, which was basically, we've noted your communications. Actually, it was addressed to me, and we shall revert in due course.
Okay.
That was some time back, mid-August.
Yes.
To date, they haven't come back. To date, because we had sent also the invoice for the outstanding arrears,
Yes.
which haven't been paid as well. What I think I can at least bring to your attention is that of the 4 clubs that were requested to leave the meeting, 2 have subsequently, after the board meeting, paid their arrears, yes, and brought in their affiliation forms. Yes. All right, so the 2 clubs that are still not in the correct state is East African Motorsports Club and Kenya Rally Team. Now,
there was this other meeting again, recent meeting, I think earlier this month.
On Tuesday.
Yes, and from the records I have, out of the 14 clubs that were there, 9 didn't show up or something. Yeah. And so what was going on? Because these meetings, were they? It looks like they were AGMs. People think they're AGMs.
No.
They were not AGMs. They're board meetings.
So it was a specific,
exactly.
it was a special board meeting.
Yes.
And the reason for the board meeting was that...
and you pointed another chairman as well.
No. We actually didn't. We actually didn't. So the special board meeting was as a result of a meeting that the chairman, Jim Kahumbora, had with the Registrar of Sports, when he was informed that there were 2 other parties that were trying to register a federation.
Yes.
Now, so what happened is that he was called into that meeting, and he said, look, we are the federation, and we are in the process, because when we became aware, a letter was written to the registrar saying we still are the sporting authority in Kenya, and called for the meeting, and we said we are in the process of meeting our compliance.
Yes.
And here it's important because these other 2 parties were applying to be federation. What KMSF needed to do was just comply with the act.
Okay.
So on KMSF, in that meeting the following Monday,
yes.
Sorry, let me step back about that notice and the board meeting that was held. Yep. So what happened at that meeting is that they were told, okay, fine, you need to get your paperwork in. So he said, okay, fine, for the sake of good order, we'll call a board meeting, get the proper resolution of the board for us to proceed with the compliance. Yes. And that's the reason why the board meeting was called, just 7 days notice. It was that, and the board meeting had only one agenda item, compliance with the Sports Act, nothing else.
Yes.
Now, when the meeting was called, I am aware there was a letter that was circulated asking directors to sign to say they will not come for the meeting, but I think there were 5 directors that actually attended the meeting. Why the others felt that the federation shouldn't comply and shouldn't attend the meeting, I don't know.
The company secretary, CSS, also resigned. I mean, how are we running the federation? So, there's a and you see, I'm bringing up these things because we're also getting it from where we are sitting as reporters and also as media. There's a lot of things being thrown left, right, center.
And I'm happy to clarify it for you.
So the company went. What is going on? Is it lack of confidence at the leadership?
So let me just do that one bit on the company secretary.
All right.
At the board meeting of the 28th, there was a specific agenda item to replace the company secretary because they were not serving the interests of the federation. Okay. All right. Yes. And there were several other things that we did as directors felt that they were not doing in the best interest of the federation. So there was a specific agenda item to replace them, and there were actually a resolution was passed to replace them by the board. Okay. Yes. So it's not a case they resigned or anything. Yes. They actually replaced. I'm not going to use the rough word fired, but they actually were replaced. Yeah.
All right. Now, from where you sit, you've said the sport is not doomed.
Yeah.
But from where I sit as a journalist, it is doomed. I'm looking at statistics. You know, statistics never lie. Numbers never lie.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I'm looking at how many people are participating, what is going on. So from statistics of the entries to now, I mean, definitely, what is the next step?
Sure.
As in, what is going to happen? I mean, there's lack of confidence. It shows clearly.
I don't think it is. I don't think it is.
Confidence.
Actually,
from where I sit.
Granted, but I don't think, if you go back in 2022, when the problem was actually noticed about the reduction in the dwindling numbers, Phineas Kimari, then the chairman, appointed a task force to actually go and speak to the stakeholders. That task force was chaired by Carl Tundo, Peter Guvi, Roy Mackenzie, myself, and Maura. We actually co-opted Eric Bengi and Baldev Chaga. We went out and we spoke to the drivers, right? And we got their feedback on why drivers are finding it a challenge to take part, right? And I thought it was a very good step, because at least we were getting feedback on what some of the things that the drivers are saying are as a result of decisions that were made, shot ourselves in the foot, right? We went and made the regulations so strict, right, that my good friend Edward Maina, in his Subaru that always offends every scrutineer, couldn't enter.
Yes.
All right? So we came in and we actually, in 2023, amended the regulations to actually ease all those challenges where drivers required to have homologated seats, homologated belts. We removed that for non-homologated vehicles. There were FT3 fuel tanks. We said you don't have, even as long as your vehicle is not homologated, you can use a safety tank. And for those other cars, you can use a normal road running fuel tank as long as it's safe. So we actually went and said that there was a regulation about your suits being racing suits not having expired. We removed that, okay? So we actually made a lot of accommodations to the drivers to ease the cost. Some of the things we were looking at was, and I think, and I still insist, that was my view, it didn't go through, was, is there any logic of getting drivers all the way from Nairobi to go and compete against themselves, say, for example, in Voi, in Nanyuki, or in Eldoret, well, those clubs don't have any local drivers taking part that these guys can go and compete with? Can we probably then just keep the event in Nairobi where these guys are, because they drive all that, and it costs a lot of money.
Yes,
all right?
Yeah.
I mean, I've got a little grandson that cuts, right?
Yes.
I know how much it costs. I can't afford to take him to go and race on the Nakuru track.
Yes.
Because it's expensive. Yes. But those are the kind of challenges a lot of drivers have. So can we make the sport or a lot more accommodating to drivers and competitors to reduce their costs? Because even in karting, everybody that goes to race on the Nakuru track, nice small track, drives from Nairobi. There is nobody from Nakuru that drives from their house to that track.
Indeed.
So when you make people go that way, so what you'll find is that the numbers going to Nakuru are much lower. I'm particularly very, very worried, not just in rallying, even in karting, because there seems to be a much bigger focus in rallying. In karting, it's not any better, because we start off with the youngest kids at 50cc. We don't have anybody in 50cc. Everybody transitioned this year into 60.
Yes.
And we will have only 3 drivers in 60cc next year, because the ones that we found in 60, where my grandson just moved into, are moving on to Rotax. Now, we are not doing much to bring in younger drivers to come in. So some of these other drivers transition from your Rotax senior onto autocross and onto rallying. Yeah.
I was reading an article somewhere, a motorsport. There is a blog article whereby someone was saying that you're a board of directors on KMSF, you are a member of Motorsport Council, you're also a member of the Karting Commission. Does that get into, there's a conflict of interest now that also some of people you know also participate in karting? As you also mentioned that, who is in charge at KMSF? Is it the general manager, Maura? Is it the chairman, as you speak currently? Because I'm sure that's where the problems, or maybe the problems, are emanating from.
The structure of the federation is that the general manager is the chief executive.
Okay.
We do not have an executive chairman.
Okay.
The chairman we've got is a chairman of the board.
Yes.
Okay. So the running of the federation is under the general manager, obviously under the guidance of the board. Yeah.
All right. Of course, let me just ask this. There was just some news that came in about the current chairman, Jim Kaumbura, appointing, I'm just reading from what I had written earlier on, appointing a WRC Safari Rally team. How is that possible? And we have a chairman, Charles Gasher, who is the CEO currently. Are those conflicting roles?
Frankly,
yes,
I can tell you I'm not aware.
Okay.
But I am aware,
yes,
because I think this is now where it's important for everybody else to know.
Yes.
The rights to the WRC are actually held by KMSF on behalf of FIA.
True.
So for Kenya to run the WRC, there requires to be an organizer if the ASN is not organizing it. And that's when the government stepped in and set up what was called the project.
Okay. Yes.
So there is an event organizer agreement between KMSF on behalf of itself and on behalf of FIA and WRC project, which is a government entity. Now, that event organizer agreement provides for certain approvals by the federation of certain officials, technical and sporting officials. That is provided for in the event organizer agreement. Okay. What then happens is that WRC project will then sign an agreement with the event promoter. Okay. And that has nothing to do with KMSF because they are the organizers and they deal with the promoter. But everything is still done within the remits of within the realms of the World Rally Sports, World Rally Championship regulations and the International Sporting Code. Now, as you probably are aware, I would normally be the ASN steward, and last year I was supposed to have been the FI steward in Rally Croatia, and I've done international stewarding. So, from a regulation point of view, I know at least where some of these elements sit.
Yes.
But as I said, just like in ARC, KMSF owns the rights to those FIA championships. Yeah,
that's interesting. And you remember the new CS Murkomen saying that federations need to sort out their houses.
Yes.
In terms of accountability, all those things, because we've been having these problems for a while. You've been there for all this time. With a couple of others, I'm thinking all those others you've worked with, Chairman Jim Kaumbura, a good friend of mine. We've known each other for all these years in motorsport. Where you sit, I mean, it looks like there's change. From what I hear also, there's a new motorsport association being registered. How will that play out from where you sit?
You know, there's one thing from where I sit. As I said, I'm a member of Kenya Motorsports Club.
Yes.
Right? Yes. And my grandson has a competition license as a junior member of Kenya Motorsports Club. Sure. Right? Yes. Every driver competitor has a competition license that is issued by KMSF. Now, for you to get that, you need to be a member of one of the affiliated clubs. Right? Sure. So the question I keep asking, if, say, for example, driver X or driver Y is unhappy with what is happening at KMSF, the most important thing is that that driver belongs to a club, right? That club has a chairman. What have they done? What have they done, right, to address that matter within their club? And if they don't believe the chairman is good, get rid of him. I hold that view. But I do not believe that it is right for me, all right, just because I'm aggrieved to go in and say, I want to interfere in how Mombasa Motor Club runs or Rift Valley Motor Sports Club runs. Because I have my own club that I'm a member of.
Kenya Motorsport Club.
Which is more Kenya Motor. And all that I know.
The longest period I've seen you there.
It's the only motor.
There are no new young blood like myself to come and take over, and so that you can.
Yeah. The thing is, we actually are bringing in a lot of younger people on board, right? I mean, there's a young lady that we're bringing up, at least if I don't have to be a steward forever.
Yes, you need to.
I need to take a break and to step back.
The consultant.
So I've got one of my members.
Can take over your position.
Yeah, so I've got one of my members. She's interested in motorsport. Yes. I've taken her through the regional FI stewards training course. Yes. And I'm hoping that 2025 we can get her at least to sit on the international stewards program. She sat during the WRC as the second steward on the KNRC side of the event, and she's interacted with the international stewards and the international delegates. They like her because she is a clever girl. Okay. And I would be happy if one day I stepped back and she stepped on that, because she is a fantastic steward to be. True. Right. So we are looking at all those things, and one of the things I think some time back we were actually talking with GOtv, yes, whom you also know, yes, about starting a training program for officials. Yes. All right. Because one of the challenges we got in sport is that a lot of our officials believe you only officiate to get paid. But what we are saying is that you actually can officiate, because all of us at our levels are volunteers in the sport. Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And of course, as we wind up, John, if you're joining us, this is Sports Extravaganza. I am with, of course, John Kamau, who is one of the board of directors on Kenya Motorsport Federation. And we're discussing about, I'll call it crisis, because from where I sit, it's a crisis. We have a group that is on this other side, John. There's another group. There's now you there seated at Kenya Motorsport Federation. And it looks like this gap is not going to be bridged. What next? You have these drivers. At
my personal level, yes, I'll give you an example.
Yes.
Couple of weeks ago, I put in a challenge out there and I said, why don't you have these cars? So here is the deal. I'm volunteering my time, free of charge, find a route, run an event, and I'm going to provide total transparency what the cost of this event is going to be. Okay. Right? And every entrant are going to share the cost of the entry fee. Okay? And I was actually quite happy. I got people that came in and covered 74% of the cost of the event. So I was able to reduce the entry fee to 10,000 shillings for the sprint. I called it a sprint because it was just 3 loops of the same stage. I'll say where I'm coming from, which, yes, is now where I'm a bit upset with this other group. Yep. Because the stuff they're putting out there, boycotts KMSF, boycott motorsport, boycott events, I think it is wrong, because if they are...
They don't have a reason why they're boycotting?
Which is what I'm getting at.
Oh, they have
which is
right.
Where I'm getting at.
Okay.
And they got it right. So I've asked, yes, people, yes, tell me, yes, why, if you are a driver, right, Tony, why is your car in the garage? You spend 10 million shillings. Why don't you want to race your car? Mm-hmm. Let me know. Yes. Let's find a way we can get your car out of that garage. But every time, nobody wants to get into specifics. A lot of times, you're just dealing with the abstract. The problem with that is that you've got a moving target of a problem, yes, which is very difficult to nail down the problem and offer a solution. And I'm happy to sit with anyone that comes and tells me, John, here is my challenge as a driver. Here is my challenge as an official. Yes. Right? Yes. Because you can never solve a problem you're not aware of. Right? Yes. As he said, we start in 2022, listen to the drivers, amended the rules. Okay? So it cannot be because it's expensive because of the rules. But if it is, now tell me what rule you would like us to change. And as long as it doesn't compromise safety, yes, and the technical aspects of that make a car unsafe, why not? Why not?
So is the appeals board, mm-hmm, now you've mentioned about rules, is the appeals board, do they have the last say in internal rules and regulations? The appeals board? Because I'm sure maybe those are the reasons, because we've had issues in NCRs, those competition rules. Yeah. Internal mechanisms, does the appeals board have that power over, in terms of all those?
There are things they've got power of. The things they've got power of, yes, the things that will be ultra-vires. For example, the appeals board, mm-hmm, cannot amend the regulations. Okay. All right? Mm-hmm. The appeals board cannot make a decision, yes, that amends the regulations. All right. All right? As I said, I've been a steward for a long time, and yes, so some of the training that we get, yes, is to ensure that your decisions are not subject to appeal, by making sure you do them right. Mm-hmm. Okay. So, if there's a matter that goes to appeal, yes, right, it must be against a specific breach that the steward has made. Okay? So in this case, and I'm sure you're referring to the recent matter, the championship steward decided not to award championship points. All right? And from where I see it, he was actually right, because he had no basis to allow or to allocate those points, because you're 26. Allow me to make you that young. But for you to drive this car, you need to be 30 years old. Okay. Right? That's what the regulations provide for that class of car. It's the same thing we had with this one in autocross, the open class.
Right.
The minimum age is 18 years, but these boys were less than 16. One was 15.
Okay.
So from that point is that any attempt at changing that, awarding them points, you would need to have amended the regulation to be able, because those rules are championship rules.
Indeed. John Kamau, who is, of course, Kenya Motorsport Federation board. I know we can speak about this for an entire week, and we will not even exhaust it, because there's a lot that we can discuss about. I know there's a lot of autocross, there is the rally itself, there is enduros, there are all those motorsports. There are a lot of faces or facets of motorsport in the country. We have agreed, of course, there is a problem in the country, and that's why here at TV47 we will pursue this particular issue to the end, to ensure that at least there's normalcy in motorsport.
But I'm just going to say one word. And because,
under 1 minute.
Yeah, under 1 minute.
Yeah.
I think sometimes it's also good to recognize your own respective failures.
Okay.
I think what the new board after the AGM should do is, once they constitute the commissions, is to have the commissions engage the stakeholders in understanding the regulations. Because I think the moment people understand those regulations, then it's a lot easier to govern the sport, because you can come back and say, can we change this, can we change that? Because you are coming from a point of knowledge. Okay. But if we do that, we shouldn't have a problem.
Thank you, John. John Kamau.
Thank you very much.
Federation Board. Thank you for making time, and thank you actually for honoring our invite to be on this show. You're always most welcome, of course, here. And asante sana.
Yes.
All the best to your team playing against Leicester in the English Premier League. This, of course, is Sports Extravaganza. This is a place to be.
Yes.
Of course, they're getting matters deeper into motorsport, and of course, to see how or the way forward for this particular great sport in the country, where we are hosting WRC 2025. And of course, John Kamau and the rest of the stakeholders in sport need to ensure that we do it. So thank you for making time. We are taking a very, 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 very short break to pay our bills. But remember, of course, let me just quickly, there was this story just before. Just sit around John Kamau, don't worry. I'm just doing my own internal houses. Talking about the English Premier League, we managed to talk to some football